Today I'm going to talk about ways to use AI if you're a short-term rental property owner. And I know that that term is open because different people have rental properties for Airbnb versus, 6 or 12-month leases. So I'm keeping it open, but I want to explain sort of where this discussion started with my friend who owned a rental property in our college town and how we were using AI in that application. And then talk to you about how I'm using AI in scouting some things in Dallas related to buying a short-term rental property. So if you're looking at either buying a property for a short-term rental or you already have one, I hope this is good food for thought for you, of an example of what you can build when you sort of understand what problems you're trying to solve. So this started as a project for my friend who wanted a rule book to leave as a digital asset in short-term rentals so that someone could open up an iPad or a tablet and have a reference document about the things to do around the house, when to take the trash out, when to check in, when to check out, how to log into Wi-Fi, etc. So set that up, and as we went through the process, I started to learn more about AI, and the thought started to be, well, if you want someone to come back to your property, how should they do that? So today I'm going to walk you through the features of this first app, which is this rulebook app. And then I'm going to open up another application that has to do with how to use AI for scouting properties and identifying opportunities. So it's going to be a little fragmented. It's going to be about an hour long, so stick with me. If you fall off early, I will forgive you, but if you come back, I will be here. So, okay. So this is what a house rule book might look like. If you go in to the manual, it's got just an about us, about the space. And then as you roll down, there's the rules of the house. So no smoking, no third-party bookings, quiet hours, how to do things around the house, how to use a fire stick. If you're going to the game, sort of how to get there, here's directions. So all of this sort of was just not AI at all. But as we got into it, the discussion started to be how we could incorporate AI. So I'm logged in as an administrator now through that administrative view. And I want to show a couple of things that we incorporated to facilitate the AI I'm going to show you. So we wanted to build a way for people to submit guest reviews. And although you can submit guest reviews through the Airbnb portal and should when you own a property, if those guest reviews you want to inform the improvement of the property, those would be a little bit deeper and more involved. And so the first thing we built was a way for someone who would want to stay at an Airbnb to join the loyalty program. In doing so, they would have to fill out a review of their stay, and then we could parse that review for insights. So we did that. I also seeded this with some of the insights that came from her Airbnb review portal. So don't worry about that. But by entering the loyalty program, the notion was people who book repeat stays might get things like coupons or discounts with associated businesses in the area. So when they enter the loyalty program here, oh God, where did I put it? Oh, here. You put in your name, email address, city, state, and you provide your feedback, and that gets stored in the database. And what happens then is that we kick off our AI insights. And these insights are parsing the reviews and performing sentiment analysis on the review itself. We can extract out things like topics, keywords, but under this owner insight area, we can start parsing this for recommendations of how to make a stay better, what the person thinks might help. And we can use AI to complement what the visitor says with what the market is telling us, and then inform the property owner around what they should do next to make the next stay better for the next visitor. So this is going to be perhaps they should consider premium snacks and beverages, or a check-in process, or a personalized host, whatever it is. But these are individual insights on the individual review. I want aggregated insights that take all these reviews and all of these individual review insights to bring them together. And that's where we can take all of these things then in the next string and create an executive dashboard that would say, here at the property level, here's all the ways we can make things better. Here are the opportunities, here are the quick wins, here are the things that might be best deferred until later. Here are trends that we see based on keywords or mentions that are repetitive across the entire review grouping. And then we can really distill this down to action items so that the owner of this Airbnb understands what to do. What are they supposed to do to improve the property or to pay attention to the criticisms that might be, there's not enough hooks, change the towels, whatever. So this level of detail is available, at a simple dashboard view, and that in and of itself provides value to any short-term rental owner, because then they can start to see, without combing a bunch of third-party sources, what people are saying about their business or their home or their rental. So that led to me considering buying a short-term rental property myself, because I've had one in the past and I managed a rental for a side business for 6 or 7 years as I worked early in my career. I had some notion of what it takes to manage a rental, but doing this whole new Airbnb, VRBO process was new to me, and I wanted to learn about it. But more, I wanted to be able to understand all the things that went into potentially buying a property so that if I bought one, it was a good investment 15 years from now and just not 5 days from now, which is sometimes a problem. So I'm going to open up another app and just talk about how you can use AI to research properties that might be in your area. And I'm going to say, in this series of videos, I want to make it known that I'm talking about how content creators can use a combination of their skills and AI to work with APIs to build applications. So it's the 3 A's. It's AI, APIs, and apps. And this app is for me. This is not a market-facing app, although I'm sure if somebody wants to pay me enough money, come along and I'll sell it to you. But for now, it's just something I'm using for myself. And what I can do is I can look at a property rental company. Let's go over to Zillow. And I can look for real estate I potentially would be interested in. Let's say I want to buy a rental house in Dallas, and I want to buy it near 5 Mile Creek here. So this is going to be the property I'm interested in. I pull the URL from the address bar. I go to my property engine. I add a property. I'm looking for a short-term rental, and I do my smart import. And this imports the property listing. When it imports the listing, it's looking at all the metadata attributes of that listing and it's pulling it into a form so that I don't have to keystroke in things that I might not understand. I'm not a real estate expert, but I can program the app to understand where it is in the map, the listing URL, what tags. Here, this is AI generated to generate notes based on the property. So I can start to conduct some AI analysis on this property at that first level. But what I really want to do is auto-populate a form. Everything from asking price to condition, to inputs, to data, to compliance. And then when I'm doing that, I can calculate a score that scores this property. And I'm going to go ahead and save it in the database so that you can see it. They're both charming homes in separate parts of the city, so we'll probably have to work on our descriptions. But let's just go in here, go into edit mode. Now I'm looking at this property. It's indexed into my database. I've initially scored it using all the things I can scrape in, but what I really want to do is use this as the way to say, based on all of this data and my rationale, that I am a short-term rental buyer who's interested in this, I can kick off AI insights that are that engine to help me understand if this is a high value risk or not, because it can look at everything from geolocation to the metadata to what I'm working on and say this is great. And this is the argument to why I might want to buy this property. Or if I'm working with a pool of investors who are getting together a pool of resources to buy properties, I can start to make an argument about why this is good or bad based on where the property is, what zone it's in, how it operates, and where it is in the scheme of a map based on location, which I'll show you in a minute. So this is the first part of it. I had generated my economic analysis based on the initial attributes when I brought this property in, but now I'm going to regenerate it because I've generated out this new part of this analysis. And as I regenerate this, it's going to look at the scoring sort of in light of that and generate out what my considerations are. And I always, as a former copy editor who worked in journalism for so long, consider any AI output invalid until I validate it. But I also consider it an 80% pretty okay writer, kind of an okay creator at that first level. So I'm going to look through here and I'm going to say, is this right? And I can start to make calculations based on my own algebra of how this property falls into what I want. Competitive landscape, proximity to Dallas. What arguments? So if I need to make an argument to a stakeholder, I'm actually using this as a business intelligence tool. Less as a journalism tool like I've shown you in past apps, but I genuinely am using this to score things and make decisions on where I would want to buy property to complement my retirement. After I'm done with this, I can update it and it'll show up on a map. And we can see where these properties are in proximity. And a lot of people want to bundle properties together because it's easy for maintenance and service. But if I wanted to then complement this with spatial data, I've got this all in here. And I can say, okay, well, show me all the national parks. And where are they? Oh, here. There's none in Dallas. Show me the campgrounds. I could, if I wanted to, use census data. I could show nearby places. I can show drive time based on a property. You know, if I wanted to say, okay, show me based on this property. 15 minutes, 30 minutes. And I can start to get an understanding that if you're going to rent an Airbnb and you're going to work in Carrollton, this is going to be your commute, especially if you're not from Dallas. So when we're coming into the World Cup season and we're coming into the Oklahoma City hosting the two Olympics events, it's going to be huge for this region, but people are going to need to get a sense of how to get around because it's going to be a completely new environment in different places. So anyway, this is how I can use this. And if I click on this census data, I can then look at where this home is in relation to the spatial map that I've drawn. So one leads to the other, leads to the other. And I just want people to understand that if you're a content creator and you're really thinking about getting into code, it really is about thinking through the flow of things, not necessarily the code of things. And that difference means all the world, because if I build an app and I hand it over to someone to use it, whether they're a friend, a client, a business, whatever, my hope is they're operating at this admin level. They are looking at prompts and they are fixing the prompts to make sure that these prompts can create out of the system the outputs they need to make it better. And this is where we can get very, 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 very granular. We can say, well, act like you're this, or pretend this is the scenario. These are the conditions. Use this framework. It's literally a green space of opportunity. But because this is about scoping out properties and putting it on a map, I just want everyone to understand this part of it is just thinking through what you're trying to accomplish. Because if you understand that with any of these new frameworks, you can put together apps that have AI, APIs, and are hosted in the cloud at the heart of things, then you can start to use technology as a tool in your own life, and you can feel less of a creature of a victim of AI and more of a controller of it. So those are the first two things I wanted to show. The last thing is if I open up, takes us, come on. So I've shown you how I can use Airbnb reviews to do sentiment analysis on reviews. I've shown how we can use mapping and spatial data and an atomic content strategy to power something like a property research engine. All of that leads to trying to get an understanding of if you're going to do that level of analysis, maybe you want to understand the area that you're buying in and get a deep dive into the area. So yesterday I showed you an app that I had built that I use for my own purposes that is a mapping piece of software, and I'll just open it up in its own thing. But when we talk about how we can do location-based entry and geospatial data, we can tie things in at the application layer and make things very, very easy to load and visualize. You know, here I'm on a map, and if I want to load up the Dallas or the Texas National Park Services on click, I can bring us over to the area of the map this is in the base view of the map I want, and then I can complement this, and this is all AI generated content based on the location. And we can index in documents or sites like the National Park site to reference it. But then we can start to think about, well, once I locate a location on the map, I want to research this, and I can pull it in to a portal to do that. I can isolate everything out, or I'm going to go back to the map. If I pull this into a research portal, I'm pulling in that location view here in addition to the research view, and I can pull in additional research areas. So I could pull in a YouTube video, and I can do that and see by what is highest, what is relevant, what's most recent. But I can also start to understand what national sources may talk about it, what historic sources, who would give to this area of the state, which is, where is this? Let's see. Amarillo. So we could go Amarillo, Texas, and then we could pull in an entry of all the people who would give contributions to this area. This is an example of chained AI. And if we talk about just content flows through an application, sure, it's like what the user wants to do and how they want to get there. But when you're building one, it's like, what problems are you trying to solve? Are you trying to present different park service information to the user? Are you trying to allow them to understand what's happening with financial contributions based on a location? If you can toss all that stuff out on a puzzle board, and then you can organize it in order of steps that the user wants to take, then building these applications, it's just an endless stream of opportunity. And if you need to then market something like a short-term rental, you can then build visualizations that would say, okay, I've got, back to our short-term rental example, I've got a location, 123 14th Avenue, Stillwater, Oklahoma. Why did that disappear? Now I'm over here. This is the short-term rental property. I can shrink this out, and I can start to create, if I were to scroll all the way out, spatial material of where this house is compared to campus, compared to this location. It's whatever we want it to be, but what I was most interested in when I built this stuff out is to say, if I know a location, and then I know I'm going to be able to do transportation layers based on a location, I should be able to toggle back in through 2D and 3D mode, and then based on that location, say, all right, here's the Airbnb in Stillwater. If you need to work in, let's say, Guthrie, show me the highway system that's the nearest to there. So you'd know you'd need to take a state highway up to get to the interstate system. But it's just this layered approach where these are all external APIs being pulled into the application. And if I want to layer them on top of each other, I can. And because transportation is so important to Oklahoma, and the transport of things like natural gas and pipelines, we can start to visualize that part of the journey as well. So all of this is a wordy way of saying get to building, because you can build a lot when you have a goals-driven approach. Thanks for listening.